Of course, if you've ever orgasmed in your sleep, the brain is like the largest sex organ that we have. And so there's all of these components that go into orgasmic states that can involve all or many or some combination of each of those places on our body. And kind of, if you look at traditions that have studied sexual pleasure for a long time, most of them will say, start with the outer limbs of the body. And I'm speaking specifically to the female body right now, but start outer and then work inner and then find your place at the genitals.
2, 1, 0.
So I have this song playing in my head. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that can be. Let's talk about sex. And this is because I have Kiana Reeves on the show. She's a teacher, practitioner, speaker, and leading voice in the sexual wellness movement. For over a decade, Kiana has been studying sex, embodiment, intimacy, pleasure, birth, and wellness. Her work in this field ultimately led her to join FORIA as Chief Content Officer, where she has helped grow and shape the brand over the last 5 years. Her approach is holistic and includes the emotional, biological, social, and spiritual nature of sex and intimacy. She is a certified somatic sex educator and sexological bodyworker, embodiment and intimacy coach, certified full spectrum doula, and mother. We had the best conversation about sex, how to do it, when to do it, how to increase your libido, what kind of toys you can use, what kind of lotions and potions you can use, how to communicate during sex, how to have the most amazing orgasm ever. So, if you're interested in those things, and you probably are, join us and enjoy the show. Hi, Kiana. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, before we begin, can you share one of your favorite childhood memories ever?
Oh my gosh, what a good question. Okay, so the one that popped into my head was we used to visit a family friend's house up on the hills in Santa Barbara where I grew up. And they had built it. They had 4 kids and they had built these like rolling green hills to be so kid friendly that they made like a Swiss Family Robinson treehouse. Like the kind where you're like at the top and there was like a swinging net and I think there was like a full bunk bed in there. And I don't know. I remember going there with my sisters. We could jump on the trampoline and then climb all the way up the tree into this treehouse that, nowadays someone would probably live in and like pay a few $1,000s. So that one stands out, just being able to dream and play.
That's amazing. What did you want to do when you were a little child?
I wanted to be a painter.
Oh, nice. Do you still paint? Do you paint?
It's so funny. I'm like, I have shame around how little I make art. I want to. I haven't in a long time.
You make art in a different way. So,
yeah,
how
exactly.
did you discover your passion? How did you become the person that you are today?
Well, it's a long meandering path. And I think that all paths start probably from a need. My career and my purpose and my interests all kind of wound together around sexuality and womanhood and what that meant and spirituality. And so it's been an unfolding journey, and I think it started to clarify when I was in college. I had a professor who, when I was studying sociology, he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, I know you're studying sociology, but if you want to, I think you could write a really incredible major of your own. And I will chair that major if you want to. You have to put a whole proposal together. You have to get 3 other professors to sign off on it. A lot of them get rejected. But I took the challenge on, and I ended up majoring in women, agriculture, and spirituality. And it's the essentially witchcraft. The intersection of feminine spiritual practice and earth-based spiritual practices. And then from there, got very interested in birth and became a doula and practiced for many years, had my own kids, and really started investigating the relationship between sexuality and motherhood. And that led into this whole Pandora's box, which is now my career and my life focus around intimacy, embodiment, relationships, and sexual expression.
Wow, it's all so connected. The the spirit. Do you think that sex is a spiritual thing,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, unquestionably.
even when it doesn't feel like it?
That's a good distinction. I think it always has the potential to be a deeply spiritual experience. And in order for it to be so, we have to maintain some level of consciousness around how connected we are, both to ourselves, to spirit, and to other. And no, I don't think it's always spiritual, but I think it always has the potential to be spiritual.
To become a gate for a spiritual connection. What made you look for sex after you gave birth, after you were a mother? Like look for like learn more about sex and intimate connection.
So I became a mother at 25, and I was a single parent, like right from the get go. And I had such a huge, I felt like I was living in this dichotomy because most people I knew at that age didn't have kids. And if they did, they were married. And so I had one part of my life that was like, I'm building my family. And the other part of my life was still like, I want a partner and I want partnership. And I didn't feel like dating or sex went with being a mom because of the way the world was kind of responding to me, but also because when you date, you're free often. When you're young, you can go on trips together. You can randomly go camping. You have all this freedom. And because I couldn't date in that context and I couldn't just come over any night and stay the night, I felt really
Restricted.
restricted and afraid that that no one would join me in building my family. Like to let go of their freedom and like step into this huge responsibility. And I think it was from that place that it was a personal work, obviously coming from my own wound, my own inner pain, but it really put me on this path of trying to discover what that meant, like what deep intimacy, what partnership, how sexuality was wound up in all of that. And so that's been my life for the last 12 years.
What do you think is the biggest problem or the biggest misconception people have around sex?
I think there's two that I've been rolling around in my head. I mean, there's like literally thousands, but the two that are present for me right now is this myth that if you're not dating and you're not in partnership, you don't have a sex life. Like I always hear people say this. Oh, I'm not like, what sex life? I don't have a sex life. I don't have a partner. I'm not dating anyone. And that is it's such an erasure. It like erases the ownership that we are always erotic beings. We are always sexual beings, whether or not we have a partner. And then the second one would be that when we're in partnership, there's this assumption that if you masturbate, you're cheating on your partner, or that if you have a sexual relationship with yourself, you're somehow not satisfied inside the relationship. And I think that actually our primary sexual relationship is with ourselves. And if we're not tending that, then we end up depending on another to fulfill that and to help us explore those spaces. And being dependent upon other for those experiences really limits where we can go.
Right. And how can a female discover her sexuality? Like what are the steps to reconnect with your body and discover what makes you feel good?
I think a good starting point is having time alone to be with your body sexually, not just self-pleasure, but really like carve out time to be with your sensation, to be in sensual movement. You know, dance kind of can blend into this a little bit, but if you have time carved out a few times a week where you are alone and in your own space and you're moving in your body in a way that just feels like so nourishing, you start to remember that your sexuality isn't dependent on other, but it's also not inherently connected to other. It's like it belongs to you. And from that space, the exploration becomes a really beautiful, infinite possibilities type of thing.
Is there a place in sexuality you'll never go?
That's a great question. I don't think there's a never for me. You know, my edges are pretty far out there right now, but I will say that like an emotional edge I have is around monogamy. And I feel for me personally, like I would be not functional in an open relationship or sharing my partner with someone.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I studied with Jaya, and she's pretty open, and I'm like, no, I appreciate it for you, but for me, if somebody comes near my man,
Yeah.
I'm a very jealous woman. when it comes
Yeah.
to-
I am too. Jealousy is a big edge for me. For sure. For sure.
We went on a date last night, and it was beautiful. My mother-in-law is visiting, and so we had a babysitter. Oh, I have a 4-year-old.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah.
And I saw all those single women. I mean, we're in Miami. People dress as minimal as possible here, and there were a lot of women there that were extremely exposed, beautiful, gorgeous, model-like women, and they were all single, and I was so grateful to be in partnership with all the ups and downs and all around and every hardship we went through together. I was like, oh, I'm kind of grateful to be in a relationship right now with somebody. It's really really nice. Somebody special. Yeah, we've been together for a decade.
Wow. What's your secret? What's like the thing that keeps you feeling like it's the right?
Well, first of all, it's the desire to become better people on both sides. I had to forgive a lot of things that he did that were really wrong. And I think it's mostly evolving together and find the times to be in gratitude for each other and for what I have, because we tend to, after a long time, we tend to forget why we are with that person. So when you go into gratitude,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Harville Hendricks, one of his exercises are to say 3 things you're grateful for to your partner before you go to sleep. And so you focus your mind on what's good instead of what he did wrong. So we did that for a while, and we don't really do it now, but we say thank you a lot, and we try to support each other to the best of our abilities. And I don't know, it's a for us it's a soul connection. And we've been through really hard times. We've been through really really hard times, but it's the desire to be together. Plus I have coaches that coach me. He's got coaches that coach him, so we're not alone in this. We don't have a relationship coach, but like we have spiritual coaches and other coaches, and helps us.
Yeah. Not being alone and holding it is something that I feel like most of us miss. You know, like even if you don't have a coach, but being held by your friends, by your community, being reflected back to what habit you're actually bringing into your relationship, like what judgments you're actually could be projections. All of that work is so important. Yeah, it sets you up to not always blame, but to first seek within me, you know, like what something that I'm learning in my partnership is like when I'm frustrated or I feel like a need that I have isn't getting met, if I go, okay, like how am I not bringing that energy? How am I not being the person who's, you know, let's say if I feel like, oh, I'm not getting enough attention, right? how am I not giving enough attention? And then I go, oh, I'm like actually withholding a lot of my attention, or like, that goes for anything. And so to first seek in the self for what we are needing, and
But I don't like
to,
that. I like to point
I know,
fingers.
I know, I feel so
It's
much
just like it's his
better
fault all the time.
when
Like
they cause
seriously,
our
I'm perfect.
pain.
I'm so
Yeah.
perfect. Like look at
Yeah,
that.
of
It's
course.
perfection.
Of,
Like I
of
never make
course.
mistakes. I'm never not nice.
Yep. It's always their fault.
It's always their
Always.
fault. And I'm always right. So
Yeah.
if the relationship goes like that, everything works really well. If I'm
Yeah.
always right, it's perfect.
Yeah. Exactly.
Basically, in our relationship,
Exactly.
I'm mostly right, so that's why it
Yeah.
works.
That's good. I love that. Oh.
And what would you suggest for people like us that been in a relationship for a decade to spice up the relationship to make it more, juicy, sexy, funny, new, exciting, adventurous?
Yeah. So, have you ever heard of the term sexual polarity?
No.
Sexual polarity is a concept. It's kind of like it comes out of the lineage of Tantra, Neo Tantra, and it's very much the focus on the dynamic between, we'll call it masculine, feminine, yin, yang, Shakti, Shiva. It's the natural polarity that exists in the universe between two others coming together and creating something new. Yeah. And so if we look at a lot of long-term relationships, there's so much focus on merging into oneness, right? We get so familiar with each other. We get so habituated to each other. We show up with so many of like our habits that it can be hard to actually feel that draw to each other because we're already so in this space of merged. And so we pull back a little, give a little space, and start to differentiate through the way that we're expressing our bodies, the way that we are showing up literally in our posture and in our presence, and in the way we flirt, and the way we use our expressions, our eyes, our mouth. All of that becomes one of the best tools for sparking chemistry, like that sense of passion that is so present early on in relationships, because early on in relationships we don't assume that we know everything about the other person, and we also try harder, right? We remember to flirt, we remember like how we look, and that's not on a surface level. It's not just like, oh, I looked beautiful. It was like you were deeply aware of how you were moving, how your partner was responding to you, and we just kind of forget to give that level of presence to our relationship. And if I was to like name one practice that couples could do individually, it's to work on your own personal range of expression. Like everybody desires range from their partner, right? Like your husband probably wants to feel from you the tender, soft, vulnerable places, as well as your, sparky, fire-filled, expression, as well as your, hunger for sexuality. And then, there's like so much there. And often in our sexual relating, we bring one or two flavors. And so to be able to practice bringing in multiple flavors, and vice versa for men too, or masculine folks who come in one habitual way, they can practice being fuller and wider in the way that they show up. And it feels so good to know that our partners can kind of meet us in those different spaces.
And how does one connect to those places?
I think that doing work around expression with different types of archetypes, embodying different archetypes as a practice. And it's something that could be as simple as like, okay, give me an energy that's like more challenging for you to embody, that you see in other women that you're like, I'm not really like that.
I guess the Ice Queen.
Ice Queen. Okay, great. So a little more reserved, maybe a little more like cool, a little more aloof. And when you imagine Ice Queen, you probably have some idea of like the texture of what that feels like outside of you. Like if you saw it on someone else, you could observe it and name the qualities, right? Now, the practice of bringing that energy through your body is then to notice everything that that person's doing and bring it through your body in a way that feels really true. And it'll feel unfamiliar at first. It really does. It feels awkward. You don't even know where to start. And you practice with a specific energy for long enough, you can start to fall into it much easier. And you become much more filled out in how you're able to move throughout your relationship.
Yes. Are you familiar with Chila Kelly?
Yeah, S Factor. My friends and I have done a few of their classes.
Yeah, it's really fun. So I've been studying with her, and I've been going to some retreats with her, and we did practice embodying some of those archetypes, and that's amazing. But that was a long, long time ago. And then I became a mom, and I moved away from LA. Like there is a need in me to awaken that like crazy wild energy that I used to embody, and it seems like after like there is me before being a mom and my body before being a mom, and now there is a shift, and I feel like I'm rediscovering new things about myself now, or almost like things that I thought were lost, but they're never lost. You just need to like connect with them.
Yeah, they get a little more quiet. A lot needs your attention, and we only have so much of our awareness available to give to other people, to feed them and make sure the house is running well and do all the things that mothers need to do. And the most important piece there, though, is that it's always with you.
Do you have any practice that you do that grounds you? Because you're a very active person. You're a businesswoman. You're an entrepreneur. You're a mother. You do so much. How do you find your center?
Yeah, definitely being in nature, walks in nature always do that for me. And moving to music alone, like we kind of talked about a little bit, but like space alone to move to music that moves my heart and my spirit and lets me feel myself.
Oh, so nice.
It's hard to find. I mean, I have two kids and I get buried sometimes. This is like the thing with our eroticism is like it's always ebbing and flowing how much we feel connected to it.
Right. You said your edges are pretty far. Um, Maybe you can take us through how we can explore our edges, and still yet feel safe within the container and within the relationship.
Yeah. A great place to start is with fantasy. Being able to openly share fantasy with partner, knowing and having an agreement that doesn't mean it needs to be fulfilled. But let's take like a fantasy to have a threesome, which is a pretty common one, or a fantasy to be dominated, which is another one that's like pretty common, especially for feminine folks. And you open a dialogue with your partner. And I wouldn't even say like in doing it in the sexual moment, like set a separate space for it. Because often dialogue is not the part of our brain we want active when we're actually in a sexual moment, but set time to discuss and share like, okay, here's one of my fantasies. And get very detailed in the way, like what you see, how it feels, how you're being touched, what the room looks like that you're in, all of those details, because often with fantasy, it's not the thing that's happening that you're needing. There's like an energy or a nutrient inside of the fantasy that then your partner can go, oh, cool, I can work with that energetic texture, right? So if you say, dominance, um, you put your hands around my neck and then you like throw me down and turn me over and like force my face into the pillow or something. Like those cues can actually help your partner understand what they're needing to do with their body in relation to your body that might inspire some new places to explore. And what's important with fantasy is to not allow judgment into the room, to not allow shame into the room. You kind of have to create an agreement that's like, this doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't mean anything about you. It's purely something that really turns me on. And we welcome those things to work with together. And, some people will be confronted by that, but you'll also find excitement and new places to explore together.
What if you are confronted? What, because not all male or female, like not everybody is evolved, and there is judgment. What if there is judgment that can hinder uh, the sexual relationship? What if there is also something happen and one does not feel safe within the relationship to express their fantasies because they are going to be judged? How do you heal that?
Yeah. I think that's a bigger thing, and probably like if there's past wounds that are long held but not really healed, I think that it's often really good to address those therapeutically. So having an advocate in your corner, like a counselor or a couples therapist, to really be able to move you back into a place of trust. Because ultimately, any of the practices of really going deep spiritually, sexually together require a high, high, high level of trust. So establishing safety is primary. Once you reestablish safety, or there's safety, fear might still come up. Judgment is often fear masked, like it's fear, it's just masked and it's a projection. And so if you find yourself being judgmental, what am I afraid of here? For example, the threesome one, because this one triggers me, right? Like if my partner's fantasy was having a threesome, I'd be like, oh no, he like wants another person. And that would come up in me. But for me to then go, oh, that's my shit. Him wanting to be like completely just washed with love and sensation and feminine softness and beauty, like him wanting that is quite beautiful. It's my fear that, he would want someone else, or all of, like, it brings up my jealousy, but it's mine to work with. And that way, it points us back inside of ourselves instead of going into judgment of other. And again, it wouldn't mean that he wanted or needed that. It means that it's something that turns him on, which is very different than like living out the fantasy in real life.
Yes. And I like how you did the reframe, because mindset is the story that we tell ourselves about anything. That's mindset. So if you change the story from he wants somebody else, I'm not enough, I'm not satisfying him, to he just wanna be bathed in softness and be loved and cherished and feel amazing, that's different. So how do you gap that? Let's say somebody wants a threesome and the other one doesn't. How do you work it?
How do you navigate it? Um, I mean, I think it's a very personal thing, right? Like one couple might be able to approach that and say, okay, let's navigate this with specific terminology or specific terms. Like, we'll have a threesome, we'll find that person together. There's certain rules around contact. Maybe they're not in our friend group and it's only going to happen one time, or maybe another couple finds it as like an impasse and they definitely don't want to do it in real life, but they want to kind of bring the energy of that into their sexual space. And so you can totally, it's not even pretending, but it's kind of like you could go energetically into that fantasy together, narrate it into each other's ears, be fully immersed. If you wanted to turn some porn on in the background so that you had other sounds, like make it as real as possible without actually having someone else in the room. It's another good way to let it feel as close to real as possible without crossing the boundaries that one or both of you have.
Yeah, I mean, most people I know of that have open relationships or invited people to their bedroom eventually split up. Like, I don't know anybody personally that had a long-term relationship that is an open relationship. Um, But yeah, some people do. And I don't know if it's rare or not, but from what I know, uh, in my group of friends, not even like close friends, that people I know of, it never lasts. Do you have the same experience?
I think that there's lots of different types of non-monogamy, and it takes someone who's very committed to their integrity and very committed to communication to do it right. And in those cases, in the spaces where someone is mature enough to not hide anything, not keep anything a secret, and not even that, but like not even avoid discomfort, then it works for them. But in a lot of cases, we're not practiced enough at being in discomfort, saying the thing that needs to be said, being open and out and honest and presenting information. And so it can tend to get a little messy.
Yeah. Maybe you can share some uh, things that can help enhance our sex life, like um, toys that you love the most, lotions you love the most. What can help in the bedroom?
Yeah. So one really important fact that I think most people don't know is that 80% of women don't climax from penetration alone. And so there's this myth that like you start having penetrative sex and then you're both going to come together. And if that's not happening, something's wrong with you. No, that's not the case. Clitoral stimulation is super, super important. Foreplay is super important.
How long should the foreplay be?
Yeah, so female arousal trajectory is often 20 to 40 minutes to even reach heightened states of arousal. And for men, I think the average like time to completion, like time to their ejaculation is under 10 minutes. And so we're looking at a pretty big disparity in terms of like how long it takes for a female to get to the place where she could climax versus men when they're reaching climax. And so,
And the longer the foreplay is, the stronger the climax is.
oh, for sure. Yeah. And also because the more aroused she is. So, and the more likely it is that she'll even have an orgasm.
It's gonna be like a orgasm, or it can be like a oh.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So for that, like, oh, yeah. For that reason, I think it's super important to incorporate clitoral stimulation, either with hands or with a vibrator. There's lots of cool little like palm shaped vibrators that you can hold over your clitoris during penetration. That can help. And then for, oils, I mean, I work for FORIA. We've worked with them for 6 years, but
Tell us about FORIA. Tell us a little bit about them.
yeah, I will. Yeah, so even if I didn't work for them, I would love all of their products because what we make is really unparalleled in terms of quality and ingredients, and it's all designed around female pleasure. And so we have a suite of products for sexual pleasure for women, and then we have a suite of products that is designed for menstrual comfort, and then we have a midlife line called Vibrance that supports skin and hydration and feeling, moisturized from the inside out. And the intimacy line is the one that we, I think, are most famous for. And we make a whole suite of products that really address the trajectory of female arousal. So from arousal, which is blood flowing into the genitals, we have our Awaken Arousal Oil. It has 9 different botanical ingredients, all organic, all natural. And it's meant to stimulate and wake up sensation and pleasure and arousal. And it's
And there are so many, especially in my younger years, I would go to a sex shop and like just buy something, and you don't know what goes into those things. I was really unaware, and a lot of time it can be like harmful chemicals and terrible things that goes inside your body. That's awful.
Yeah, exactly. The Awaken Arousal Oil. And then we have sex oil, which is a glide. It's highly moisturizing. It makes sure that everything feels like slippery and wet. And that's really important because it protects from any friction. It protects from discomfort. And then there's the intimacy melts, which I think pair really well with the Awaken Arousal Oil, because Awaken's external. It's on your clitoris, your vulva. And then the Intimacy Melt is internal. You insert it like you would a suppository, and it melts, and it helps you relax.
And do you have to insert it during the night or just before sex, or how do you use it?
Oh, it's like 20 minutes before. It takes about 20 minutes to melt.
And what does it do compared to the oil?
So the oil, well, first of all, the oil would be hard to get internally. The amount you would need to have the same effect. It's just one of the reasons we made it. We also were looking at how much tension is held in the pelvic floor and how important internal arousal is for pleasure, and wanted to make something that was kind of like targeted internal pleasure and arousal support. And so it delivers that through botanical extracts to be able to help you relax and open and soften and receive.
Yes. I feel like, women are so emotional. And when we're stressed out, when life gets hard, it's really, really hard to be open up to the sex. And I believe that taking the time with your partner and also using those beautiful products, that can really, really help. I know that when I'm stressed out, I try to avoid sex, where it's probably the thing I need the most. And I'm not talking about a sex like penetration. I'm talking about like deep, intimate sex where you look at each other's eyes and you communicate and you talk and you make fun of yourself and you laugh, and then slowly, slowly you start to relax and melt and be open to for somebody to hold you.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do when you're stressed out?
Oh my God. When I'm stressed, my libido like goes into a dumpster. So I totally, it's so funny because you said it so well. It's like the one thing that helps, the one thing that would make you feel better is having sex. But like getting there when you feel that way, it's like all systems are shut down. Do not cross that boundary. And I have tracked it for long enough to know that's exactly what's going on. And so often I will lean in, even if I don't in that moment feel like I want to. I know I'm going to want it in about 10 minutes. I know that even if I'm tired or feel busy or whatever, it's like 10 minutes into being touched and kissed and held the right way and breathing the right way, suddenly my body comes back online and is like, oh yeah, this is really enjoyable. But it requires commitment to the moment. It requires like seeing beyond how I'm feeling in that moment and knowing that it will change in a few minutes.
Yeah, Tony Robbins said that if you want to break a state, you have to change your focus, your language, and your physiology. And that's so true because you have to, if the story in your head is I'm stressed, it's too late, I'm too tired, blah, 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 change the story to maybe I need to be held, and then change your focus on I'm focusing right now on my stress, and this is what I don't want. What do I do want? I actually want love and connection and to feel safe because I'm scared right now.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
What physiology is obviously you move your body, you change your physiology, you get out of your own way and you try to connect your body instead of holding everything in your body, you allow it to flow, you allow all the stress to let go. It's easier said than done. It's a practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like anything else in life. So you spoke about the products and you said that the handheld vibrator. What else can we put in? What else can we put in? What else can we can we add to our play?
I think sensation play is a good place to start. So using your senses, intentionally dulling different senses or activating certain senses can help you not get distracted. It's why people like blindfolds. It's why, quieting your ears can suddenly make your vision, clearer. And so working with, I think blindfolds are great because it really doesn't allow people to like get distracted by what's in their space. And then a lot of people like to work with like different textures of hot and cold, different, immersive experiences that the body can go through to kind of state change the physiology so that you're right in that moment together.
Oh, that's so good right now before Valentine's Day to start like, put some blindfolds on, play with ice, play with the safe candle, feather. Okay, so let's go through that. Okay, so we have ice, we have feathers, we have hot candles, we have whips, and what else can we have to increase sensations?
Some people like paddles, so it's a little bit different than a whip, but that's like a more hardcore version of a spank. Um, Handcuffs, immobilizing certain parts of the body. So handcuffs or shibari is something that some people really love to learning to tie each other up in a way that is reverent and not even ritualistic, but like has an art to it, that has beauty infused in it. I think you can also play with the edge of thrill by deciding to have sex in different places than you normally do. So usually it's the bedroom. Where else can you find in your house, a nice, new, fresh, like our sexuality thrives in novelty. And so finding novel places to have sex, go in the back of your car or in the bathroom or, like the kitchen table. It's like some of them are kind of tropey, but the reason that they're interesting in the first place is because it's like a new behavior, a different behavior.
I imagine us doing it on the kitchen table and then our neighbor looking from the window. Like, oh.
Totally. Yeah, like that's another one that a lot of people love is like almost being seen, almost being caught.
Almost being seen, yeah. That's funny. You said that a lot of women like to be dominated. Um, what is it about that feeling of helplessness that is so attractive?
A lot of men also like to be dominated, but we'll focus on the women. When you have a lot of control in your life or a lot of holding that you have to do, holding of the house, holding of the family, holding, like making decisions all day long, you have a career, it's like your brain's always online. It's always active. It's always like trying to go to the next thing. And being dominated requires you to surrender. And a lot of people describe states of deep surrender as being almost like mindless, where the mind gets really, really, really quiet. And to experience like a level of trust where someone else is in charge of how you're moving or what your body's doing releases you from having to be in charge in that moment. It kind of creates this state shift where suddenly you can just melt and like be, not have to think. And that's a relief. It's a relief to be able to feel that way for, however long you're in that state for.
And is it the same psychology for somebody who wants dominance, where they feel weak and they like dominance, or they just like dominance because it's fun?
I think it depends on the person. Dominance has negative connotation because, dominance, violence. And I think that those associations, if we pull them apart a little bit, dominance can also be associated with assertiveness and confidence and leadership and directiveness. That's actually a really attractive quality to a lot of people. A lot of women that I know and a lot of women in general really like to experience their partners holding that type of energy because it's trustable. It's like, cool, he's got this. I don't have to think about everything. I don't have to be the one, worrying about every detail because like he also is having vision and forward thinking vision. So to bring that into the sexual realm of he's got me, like he's able to like hold my body and move my body in particular ways and feel me in ways that I didn't even know I needed to be felt. It's a relief of responsibility and it's a surrender into experience and trust, which is really nourishing for us.
I think dominance is also an act of caring. Because if somebody step in, I mean, depends again on who does that and what's their intention, but it can actually come from a very beautiful, profound, loving place of pleasuring the partner, allowing him to be in that space of letting go, being creative for them, coming up with all kinds of fun things to do and sensation, actually pleasuring the other person from the place of being dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the different types of orgasms and how can we get the most expensive one?
There's a lot of different thoughts on this. There's, at least 10 inside of the vagina. 10 incredible. Well, yeah. There's the clitoral, and then there's the G spot, which is your urethral sponge. It's the erectile tissue bed that's wrapped around it. Right behind that, there's the A spot. Right behind that, and at the back of the vaginal wall, there's the cervix itself. And then there's a few spaces up and behind the cervix that have a lot of nerve endings that can be orgasmic as well. And then there's the K spot, which is on the posterior vaginal wall, the one down by your bum. And that's deep internally. And then the perineal sponge, which is also on the vaginal floor, but about like a tip of a finger length in. That's just inside the vagina and the vulva. You have vestibular bulbs that cup and are underneath your outer labia. Those can be very orgasmic and pleasure filled. And then many women can orgasm from nipple stimulation or anal stimulation. And then, of course, if you've ever orgasmed in your sleep, the brain is like the largest sex organ that we have. And so there's all of these components that go into orgasmic states that can involve all or many or some combination of each of those places on our body. And kind of, if you look at traditions that have studied sexual pleasure for a long time, most of them will say, start with the outer limbs of the body, and I'm speaking specifically to the female body right now, but start outer and then work inner and then find your place at the genitals. And by that time, the body's warming up. Breasts too, like start with the outer breasts. Don't go straight for the nipples. Really like work your way towards the center. And by that time, when you reach the center, if you're stimulating her clitoris, she'll likely be turned on a little bit at that point, or at least warming up. And then the clitoris is this gateway point to, if you can have a clitoral orgasm and you reach climax, to then enter and explore penetrative orgasms, which happen later once you're in peak arousal. And so that happens, like I said, 20, 40 minutes into stimulation. Cervical orgasms are likely to happen when you're like way in it. Like you've had 1, 2, 3 orgasms. You are wide open. You are totally in the moment. Your body is soft. There's not tension in your pelvis, and you're able to just breathe and be with that level of sensation. And so it's kind of like you like work your way in, you like clitoral, G spot, then you can work your way back, A zone, AFE zone, and then cervicals at the very back end.
That sounds amazing. It's so
I
funny.
know, doesn't it?
You're talking to me, and I feel like I'm blushing. I don't know why I'm blushing. I guess you're talking to me. I'm like, I feel a little uncomfortable here, but I'm trying to look really, really cool. Like, yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
Orgasm. I'm saying it again. Orgasm.
Yeah. Totally.
Do you ever get
Mm,
like I bet because this is what you do, you don't ever feel embarrassed talking about sex, but have you ever felt embarrassed talking about sex in the past? Or like transitioning from learning about, women's magic, female magic, and whatever you learned in university to becoming, helping people with sex. Was it easy, or were you a little embarrassed in the beginning? How did it work for you?
I don't think I was embarrassed, but I certainly, it's different like in a professional setting, being able to say this stuff versus being real about my experience with my partner, like that, I think is actually more edgy, because I can sit here all day and say orgasm and, penis and vagina and vulva because I do it over and over and I have practice. But then to be like, hey, my, what describing my own experience is like, it's much more confronting because it's much more personal.
Right. Anything about communication in the bedroom? Any tips that you can give me will be great. I mean, I know some of the things. I learned some of the things, but always get to know more and have some more reminders.
Yeah, I would say a couple of tips. If you need to have a big discussion, don't don't do it when you're trying to have sex. Set a time, set a container. Say, I'd love, this is such an important part of our life. Let's like set aside some time. We can really dive in together. And that way, whatever emotions come up can be dealt with as a conversation and not impact the sexual experience. Second, communicating in the moment. Less is more. So short words, clear, responsive words and directions, but not like lengthy directives. Like that feels good is great, or ouch, that hurts, or ooh, I don't like that. All really good, but they're all really short sentences that provide in the moment immediate feedback. Because what starts to happen if we're in a moment and you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good, and you always touch that spot, and I actually really, you're immediately in your head. So short and sweet, use your words and also use your body and your voice to make it clear what you're enjoying and what you're not.
And one more really important thing is just to set a time to do that, and have the intention of having pleasure, and give your partner a break.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Because you know I find myself sometimes having this like unrealistic expectation from my poor husband, and I call it, I'm just putting you up to higher standards. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just want more for us.
but yeah, like I think in general in partnership is allowing people to make mistakes, and allowing people to just be who they are, and also not to see them. When we are with one partner for a long time, we think they are a certain way. So allowing ourselves to see outside of the box and see them as infinite potential, because if your partner didn't do something a few years ago, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it is not going to do it tomorrow, because we're such dynamic human beings. We're ever evolving, shifting, changing. I'm not the person I was yesterday. I'm different today. And so allowing that mindset and that story to set in, because the story, you can look at your partner and say, he's ABC and this is all he is. Or you can look at him and say, he's a spark of God, an infinite creation. He can be whatever I want. I'm going to create him in my world in a different way. And also in my bedroom, because why not have more pleasure? Because pleasure is awesome, right?
Yeah. Boom.
Boom.
I feel like that was a mic drop. And we're done. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. I really love this
Oh, you're
conversation
so
with you.
welcome. Yeah, same.
and and
Same.
it feels very comfortable. You made me feel very comfortable in this conversation, and very safe. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a joy.
Before we say goodbye for now, two things. One, what are your three top tips to living a stellar life? And number two, where can people find you and also get those amazing, phenomenal products?
All right. So, three top tips for living a stellar life. One, play more. Play with your kids, play with your partner, play with yourself, skip down the street. Like, look at how kids play and take note, because they're really in the moment and they're really full of joy. Number two is be grateful. Like, really look around and create a practice of gratitude, everything that you have, because we have a negativity bias built into us biologically. And unless we train ourselves to notice the beauty and appreciate it and be full of gratitude for our lives, we will feel lack. and be looking at our lives from that place. And 3, I'm like such a hardcore food person and really think that what we eat and how our relationship with food is dictates so much of how we feel. And so to get into right relation with food and where it comes from, shop at farmers markets, like eat organically whenever possible, make sure you're getting whole nutrient dense foods that connect you not just to your local ecosystem and the seasons and what's ripe in this moment, but connects you with the earth at large. I think those would be my 3.
Beautiful. And where can people find you?
So you can find me personally at kianareeves.com or on the Instagram at kiana.reeves. And then FORIA is foriawellness.com, FORIA, and at FORIA Wellness.
Right. And people are having session with you on Zoom, or how do they have sessions with you?
Yeah, I do private coaching, and then I also have a few courses that I offer on demand. And then this year I'll have a big, nice long-term one for women coming out.
You're having a retreat coming up?
A long-term course. It'll be a 10-month course.
Okay. Wow. Incredible. Wow. How amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring more food to the world. Yes. Phenomenal. Awesome.
I love it. Thanks for celebrating that.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, listener. Remember to play more with yourself, with your partner, with your kids, and watch kids and see how they play and model that. Be grateful for everything that you have. Get into a beautiful relationship with food and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.